So we're talking today around this opening panel discussion is really how the UK is building a dynamic and thriving tech sector and talking about how we're going to make that happen. We heard about the amazing growth this morning, but more to come. And whether we are up for the challenge. Well, I think we all are, because we are all here, right? But I think today we're going to talk about, how do we move forward? What's coming next? And how do we get this right in terms of this really evolving and really exciting industry to be in right now? I have to say, it's so great to see so many familiar faces, including the first person that ever gave me my job in tech. So thank you to that person. Let's get into some of the devil of the detail about how we do this and what's really key to making this happen. We've got an amazing panel. We've been joined by the Minister. Minister, thank you so much for joining us. And then we have Priya Guha, a venture partner at Marine Ventures. Thank you. And Darren Hardman, VP and General Manager for AWS UK. Thank you so much for both of you for joining me. So let's kick off, and perhaps, Minister, if I could start with you, just to follow on from your presentation and your discussion around the digital strategy, which is exciting to see today. You say you want to the government to do everything it can to support the tech sector, make the UK, the best place in the world to start and grow a digital business. So how can you best ensure that the tech sector continues to thrive? As we've seen amazing growth, but how are we going to see that growth continue?
Thanks. Look, I tried to touch on that in my comments just now. Those three ingredients that the Chancellor talked about as well, ideas, people, and investment. If those three things are enabled in a given place, like the United Kingdom, then a fusion of those three things will create enormous growth. It's why we've seen the UK be so successful so far. So we need to take each of those three areas in turn and just push further and push faster. So we need to, to take an example, we need to just increase our investment in people doing STEM undergraduate courses. We need to improve the quality even further of teaching in schools. We need to do more on apprenticeships. We need to improve our tax incentives even further, which I think the Chancellor, fingers crossed, is going to be doing in the autumn budget. But we also, as I said there, need to make sure that the best people anywhere in the world can come here super easily. Now, so if we do all of those things, and we're doing quite a few of them already, then that will have a huge boosting effect on the rest of the digital economy. And if we take a similar approach to the other two areas and keep our regulation very, very light touch, then I think we have an even brighter future ahead of us.
Yeah, indeed. It's really exciting as well to see the strategy coming together and published this morning, which I'm sure everyone will, there's a lot in there to delve into. But ensuring that we take the strategy, we enact it, right? Yeah. We put it into practice, we operationalize it. It's going to be really key. And people are also chomping, at our heels. So there's a lot of agenda on the government right now. You've got a big, business. Yeah. So how are we going to ensure that, we enact it?
That's a great question. So the strategy is quite long. It's about, I think, 50 or so pages. And it requires a lot of other government departments to do things that we think in DCMS are important. So now we've published it, what I'm going to be doing in the coming days, weeks and months is turning that strategy into a bunch of actions. I think there is actually an action list at the end of it. And I'm going to basically be on the back, just like you would in a business, right? I'm going to be on the back of other ministers around Whitehall to make sure they deliver the stuff in that strategy. And I'm just going to relentlessly follow through, chase up, cajole, chivvy, appeal to number 10 if I have to get things done, to make sure the actions promised do get delivered. And if anyone here today or listening feels that there are some actions that have been promised or there are some issues that need fixing that are not getting fixed or actions not being delivered, come and contact my team at DCMS. I'm your voice in government. And if you need to get something done, come and talk to me and I'll do whatever is necessary to make sure it happens.
You heard it here, folks. That's something to follow up on. But that's brilliant to hear, because that's going to be really key. Pace and speed. This industry and this market moves so quickly. We need to keep pace, right? And it's great that the government is helping to kind of set out that vision, that strategy for how we do it. But government can't do it alone. And Darren, I'm looking at you kind of thinking about, what industry is doing to help make this happen. And is there more we need to be doing? Is there something that, from an industry point of view, we can do to help and support that we're not doing right now, maybe?
Yeah, I think the strategy calls out the industry is going to play a really important role in this, and I'm sure you'll be putting pressure and having lots of conversations with industry as well. And this is all about the building of this thriving UK tech sector, so really important. And I think industry plays a role from a couple of angles. One, direct investment into the UK, And secondly, how industry supports the next wave of new businesses to go on, grow their businesses and go out and make an impact across the world. And a few examples from an AWS perspective, we've just announced recently we're going to spend £1.8 billion over the next 2 years building out and operating new data centers to support the growing demands of our customers and equally, creating a strong foundation for the UK digital economy. Central to that investment is about skills, it's about training, it's about kind of driving sustainable solutions as well. So, really important elements. And, equally, we also see, cloud computing from the industry that we work in, a really important productivity lever for all UK businesses as well. In fact, we ran some stats on this recently that said if you took the cloud prevalence of companies in London, that's London companies using cloud to build their businesses, and you dropped it into the northeast of England, you drive £1.4 billion of productivity and wage increases, and that's just in a single region, so really important. But all of this, to actually consume that in those regions, you need skills. Yeah. You need kind of education and training so that you can actually turn ideas into action. And so, equally, we've announced we're going to train for free 29 million people on cloud technology by 2025, a massive investment also in the UK as part of that global commitment. And it also means that those skills, once they've landed, fuels quite a healthy obsession of ours, which is making sure that businesses are building on the cloud as they start their new ventures. We have this healthy obsession with the startup community, and you've heard a number of startups in the previous sessions building on AWS and becoming big businesses, Wise, Klarna, and others who are making a big impact just outside of the UK. So really important. Today we're also announcing the AWS FinTech Accelerator Program, which is building on the strength of the UK financial services industry to launch credits so that you can cost effectively start your business in the cloud, so that you can have mentorship, have business advice, so that you can kind of chart that early path so that we can create the businesses for tomorrow. So there's a few ideas about how industry, in particular AWS, we're leaning in to support this agenda.
Yeah, and we see cloud at Tech UK as well, so key to some of the technologies, Minister, you were talking about, realizing the potential of AI and quantum as well. It's going to really be that foundation. So that's really great to hear that industry investment happening and it's so key to our digital future. Priya, I'm going to come to you, a little bit of change of tone, and we are going to come on to skills. That's a really important issue we have to talk about, of course. But, it's great that we're back. It's great to see so many people and so many familiar faces. And this week is, of course, about celebrating, success and growth and everything. But it's not just all about, everything's fine, pat each other on the back and, let's go back. This week is about coming together it's an opportunity also to get into some of the hard issues, some of the hard challenges that we've also got to address if we need to, for moving forward, how we move forward. And particularly as this is an international global race, as the Minister mentioned in his speech. So what are some of those challenges to you that we really need to kind of think about this week, or what are some of the challenges that we still need to kind of get right as we go forward?
So I think there's one really obvious challenge that we are all about to face, and it was raised in the earlier sessions this morning, which is the global economic downturn. The founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, talks about default dead, default alive as the way to run a startup. And Y Combinator wrote to all of their portfolio companies just recently, telling them that they needed to make sure that they were in default alive because the climate for raising capital is going to be incredibly challenging over the next 6 to 12 months. We need to recognize that the UK is part of that global economic system, and we will, despite the very powerful narrative that we've all rightly been incredibly proud to share in the conversations we've had so far today, we will be hit by those same challenges. So there's a really important thing for us to think about, which is what additional things can we do to shore up our really amazing scaling tech sector to make sure that to the degree we can, we're mitigating the global economic downturn. In the spirit of opportunities, though, I also wanted to flag one other thing, which is there is an incredible reality in the UK that we have a higher education system that is top in class across the world. The latest statistics on university rankings, out of the top 10, apart from one, which was ETH in Zurich, the rest of the top 10 are universities in the UK and US, 4 of those here in the UK. So the quality of higher education is incredible, but we're still not realizing the opportunity of commercialization. You talked about it in your remarks. I think that's a real opportunity for us in the UK. How do we support the incredible top-class, world-level research coming out of UK universities to be translated into commercial prospects, to be scaled, and to be successful from the UK?
So we talk about the title of the session is Up for the Challenge, right? And I'm thinking now how we support those, those entrepreneurs, those startups that are coming out of the universities and are thinking around, okay, how can I start my business? How can I scale up? How can I do it? And you've obviously had a lot of experience supporting them. How can we best help them to, be ready and be up for that challenge and moving forward? Because that's so key to commercialization, as the Minister was talking about.
I mean, I think part of it is practical. It's, as you say, about the support we give around entrepreneurship at universities in the UK. And I think this is a really important point to make. This is not about the sort of, top 6 universities from which much of the commercialization comes. This is about a pan-UK agenda. Actually, how can every single educational establishment in the UK have a system that supports technology transfer and spinning out of companies? But I think there's also a really important piece around culture here. We still don't have a culture. I spent 5 years in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
We don't have the culture that you will see in a place like Stanford, where an academic can double hat with a really exciting startup or a number of startups on the side, and that's perfectly acceptable. We need to move to a place where it is absolutely normal for our best academics to be also CEOs and scaling amazing companies.
And that's interesting, that culture thing about not just thinking local, but thinking global, and how can we support tech leaders to do that? Minister, I'd love if you've got a view here in terms of how do we support, because it's not just investment coming in, it's supporting our tech leaders and kind of innovators to go around the world as well. We need to get that right as well, right?
We do. I think a lot of this is about ambition, right? It's being ambitious, as you say, on a global scale and not settling for being dominant just in one geography like the UK or indeed one continent, Europe. Our businesses need to be globally ambitious. It's a change of attitude, a change of mindset that will push us forward even further. I think we can support that in government partly just by exhortation, by celebrating success rather than being... I mean, there is this sort of slightly British thing about, wanting to pull people down when they succeed or thinking that somehow it's a bit kind of grubby to do well in business. I don't think it is at all. I think it's fantastic. And we need that message just to percolate all of our society. I think secondly, we need to make sure the UK is a platform for going global. That partly means helping people to come from anywhere in the world here, as I was saying earlier, and as Rishi said in his speech earlier too. But it also means, now that we're out of the European Union, which I know has its challenges, but one of the benefits is that we can now build our own trade relationships and digital relationships around the world. So as we do new trade agreements, for example, there's one with India being negotiated right now, or as we roll over the EU ones and then update them, like Israel as an example, we've rolled that over, but we're going to be updating it. We're going to be putting in digital chapters that are either brand new, like India, or that didn't exist before, like in the example of Israel, and forming partnerships with, whether it's with America or Japan or South Korea, these sort of countries around the world. And by doing that, by facilitating digital free trade and data transfer and those kind of things, we can make the UK a springboard for global expansion.
Yeah, really exciting. And we've got to get that spirit into those innovators now to think that they can do it and to support them in every way possible.
And to be fair, many do. I mean, many UK unicorns are truly global.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a lot of them here and during this week. So absolutely brilliant. But just to touch on, you mentioned yourself that AWS supports a lot of those startups, a lot of those innovators. So just wondering from your point of view, Darren, is there, I'm just going to ask you one thing, but that's quite cruel, that, that those tech leaders need to be up for the challenge and to scale and grow?
I think a couple of things, because they're both interrelated. I think it's access to the very best technology and then the skills to go and execute upon those. And so, you mentioned startup. Obviously, a startup, we're very invested in startups. We have, you mentioned the volume of UK unicorns. The majority of those are building on AWS. The majority of big startups are building their businesses on the cloud. And why do they do that? Because First of all, it's democratized IT. No longer do you need to have the buying power of the big enterprise to enter, invent, experiment, and start using the very best AI, digital technologies to turn your idea into life. How do you then expand that and go global? Well, you deploy it globally through the cloud, and that's a really quick action to take our UK businesses and have them have an impact globally. But you can only really do that. And by the way, you've got, today we've heard from Wise is a great example of a company that started here and it's used the AWS cloud to, further its global reach. And brilliant organizations like, Darktrace on the screen here that have built their businesses in the cloud. So a really important agenda, but you can only do it with the skills. We need to be a net creator of the skills so that those tech leaders can lean in and have access to the very best technical skills to build their business, because if they don't, they'll go elsewhere to find those skills. And that's going to be really important to make sure we can deliver on the ambitions of this agenda.
So with that, how do we make sure the government get the right strategy, get the right approach to digital skills that meets the needs of industries and reduces that skills gap? Because it is, I'm sure it'll come up in nearly every session throughout this week. It is the key issue for this industry right now, or one of the main issues for this industry right now. So how does government get that right? I think
it starts with an open dialogue. We're having an open dialogue here. The central tenet of the strategy that you've just laid out is about, bringing educational institutions, business and government together to try and solve this problem. And I've just been invited to join the Digital Skills Council that you just announced, which is fundamentally about how do we define what's here today? How do we go forward, into the future and then work backwards from the thing we're trying to deliver? And so, how does that come to life for us? We're a very data-driven organization, so we went out and looked at the data. I was passionate about this because we identified there's 11.6 million people in the UK. That's 35% of the workforce that need digital skills training now just to meet the current technical demands. And so we've been putting our investment to good cause to try and help solve some of that through fantastic initiatives like AWS Restart, AWS Academy, AWS Get IT, AWS Edge. These are schemes that are focused on bringing the underemployed of society. Like an example is AWS Restart, which is a program that focuses on the underemployed, those that wouldn't typically have the opportunity to go down a digital career path. We fund their education, certification. We then work with businesses, several at this event, to land them into their first digital jobs. Just Financial Times, Cancer Research, British Telecom, just a few of companies that have taken these individuals. That's a really important scheme because it's not just about London. It also supports the levelling up agenda because it's in 22 cities across the country. And then you talk about academic institutions, AWS Educate, putting a free curricula into higher education institutions so that when you're doing whatever course you're doing, you're also coming out with an AWS certification that puts you in line for those digitally enabled jobs. And these are just a few examples of the types of schemes that we're leaning in around.
Yeah, Priya, there's no silver bullet to this, right? It's going to take, it takes a village, right? But it's going to take a lot of different approaches. What would be your top of your list?
Well, I think for me, the top of my list around the skills agenda is actually how we ensure that it's an inclusive part of the
bring
UK
everybody
economy.
Along with us on this.
We have one of my hats, as you know, is as a trustee at a charity in the UK called Tech She Can, and Tech She Can works with over 230 different partners across the UK to work to create an inclusive tech sector. Obviously, the focus is first on gender because it is a real problem still in the UK. About 27% of women think tech is a potential career for them versus 61% of men. That's a really, really worrying statistic in this day and age. But it's not just about gender. This is also about the reality that only 22% of our schools offer computer science as a GCSE. These are things that we need to really change because we need our UK-based skills sets to be ones that will be relevant to the tech sector in the future. Alongside, of course, the things that you referenced earlier, Minister, in terms of the range of visas available to bring in talent from an early stage right through to sort of scale-up visas later on.
Yeah. No, thank you for raising that, because it's such an important issue we have to bear in mind, and hopefully it will be a thread throughout the whole week.
And if I can just add one sort of sub-point to that, Sue,
Yeah.
the reason is why. Because actually we'll be a much better, more effective tech sector with better products, better economic value as a result.
Yeah, I agree. And from my point of view as well, ensuring tech is diverse means it's more likely to be ethical as well, which is a really important thing that we have to get right. We are running out of time. I have a red clock staring at me, which is terrible, so and quite intimidating. So I just wanted to final view from all of our panel in terms of, we've got a lot on the agenda this week. There's a lot of different events that I know I will be running around. I'm sure we will all be running around. But is there one issue that you really want us to kind of make progress on? One issue that you really want people to kind of come away from this session and go, yeah, we really need to be talking about that this week. Maybe we'll start here and go down and come to our minister last. But Darren.
Just, whether you're in government, whether you're from an educational institution, whether you're from a business, how can you contribute to closing this digital skills gap?
Yeah.
Leaning on diverse populations and creating a broader talent pool to allow the UK to succeed on a global scale when it comes to new technology ventures.
Great. Priya?
For me, it's something that you referenced, which is encouraging in the digital strategy, which is scale up patient capital. And then for the UK, as you rightly said, we've got the pension funds, so getting that money into UK technology is fundamental.
Yeah. And Minister, final word to you.
Well, I completely echo. The 2 points I had in my mind were just exactly those 2 points you just used. So I completely echo that. And Darren, by the way, I should just say thank you to AWS for your £1.8 billion investment in the UK. That is fantastic news. So big thank you. Look, I echo those points. As I said, I think the skills point is fundamental. If we can get people who aren't currently considering tech into tech, that will massively address the skills challenges that we have. So I think that's point number one. And then the scaling point. We need to get that capital from the pension system into tech in the long term. Pension funds can take a 20 or 30 year view. And that supports my final observation, which is just scale. We talked about it earlier. Let's be ambitious as a country. Be ambitious in your businesses. Don't be satisfied being simply moderately successful. Don't be satisfied being just a UK or just a European business. Have global ambitions. Aim to be impactful. Aim to be global. Aim to be big. The United Kingdom is a place you can do that. We've got the capital. We've got the talent. We're going to have even more. And we've got the ideas and the innovation. If we do that, we're going to be even more successful in the coming years compared to the last one.
Well, thank you, Minister. And I think you'll find everybody in this room and everybody at London Tech Week is definitely up for that challenge. So let's make it happen. Please, can we thank, in the normal way, no digital hands required, although if you are watching digitally, please, digitally clap. Please thank our panel, Minister Chris Philp, Priya Guha, and Darren Hardman. Thank you so much. A fascinating conversation. Thank you.